Welcome everyone to sportsbookreview.com, and this edition of the Roundtable we will review last night's first round of the 2020 NFL Draft with Donnie and Drew, and then we'll preview rounds 2 and 3, and a very warm welcome to all of our Facebook viewers as well. And if you are watching on YouTube, then please put all of your questions in the chat, because there is a whole host of talent going through the rounds tonight of 2 and 3. Gentlemen, how are you? And there were some shocks and surprises last night. I'll start with you, Donnie.
Yeah, I'm doing good. And last night's draft, very interesting as usual. For me, watching like a fan, I really wanted to see where the top 6 draft picks went. Then I dipped out and came back on for the Eagles pick. And of course, to my excitement, I was a little bit underwhelmed by my Philadelphia Eagles. But I can't wait to talk about the first round last night and absolutely lay some waste into some of these draft picks and some of these guys, where they went to certain organizations or didn't go to certain organizations. We'll have some fun today.
Drew, I think we had 6 or 7 winners last night. So normally when we get around that, we at least break even, or we just show a little bit of profit.
Yeah, no, it was good. It was a really good round. I had some big prices come in. I had a small tickle on Thomas, first offensive tackle off the board at 20-1, which was a total surprise. I thought I had made a bad bet there. I thought that was a wasted play because there was so much smoke with Wills and Wirfs to the Giants. But they take Thomas number 1. That pretty much put me in the black for every. I could have lost everything else, and that would have been enough to give it a good day for me. We saw a big price come in on Ruggs, first wide receiver as well. That hit at 6-1. I know there were some folks out there that a lot of people in the community had that LSU kid CEH. I don't know what his actual name is, but his initials CEH, the running back from LSU. He came in as first running back, and I have some friends who had him at I had some friends that had him at 25-1 to be the first running back taken, which is just crazy. So those were there were some big prices to be had last night. Outside of that, though, it was pretty chalky. Kind of as expected. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Really no shockers. The first surprising pick really was, from a position or from a player standpoint, wasn't really until kind of halfway through the draft. So it was a pretty chalky draft, and I think a lot of people probably made a good amount of money.
Yeah, and it pays to probably look outside the box. I mean, I give myself a little pat on the back here because I said that Tua was going nowhere but Miami a month ago on the Roundtable hosted by Donnie. And then a good friend of mine who's sitting, as we can see, to the left of Donnie, talked me out of it. But you owe me one, but I'm sure you'll pay me back treble. So we go with Andrew Thomas, projected 11-15, but to go 4, that was a massive panic up for me for the Giants. What do you think, Donnie?
Yeah, if I'm looking at the draft last night and the winner, like Joe Burrow had to go number 1. Nobody's going to argue Chase Young going 2, but I thought maybe from an analytical perspective, number 3 and number 4, Okudah going to the Detroit without them trading out was horrendous. And then I back it up by saying the worst spot in the entire draft for me was the New York Giants, who were sitting there with a MAC-10 full clip ready going, they just went Okudah 3. These two teams in back of me, they're going to fight over quarterbacks. They know I'm not taking a quarterback. Let me pick up the phone and let me call each one and say, you know what? Just got a call from, the Chargers. They really want this spot, Miami. What do you think? I hang up the phone. You know what I do? I roll reverse, and I called Miami. Hey, look what's going on over here. Look what's going to take place. You could have flipped that for a gold mine, a number 2 pick next year, a number 3 pick this year, a number 4 pick, whatever it would be, just by picking up the phone. And Gettleman got scared flash earlier in the day. Why is that? Because Miami goes, watch me play this guy like a clown. I'm going to call around and make it think like, ooh, I want Joe Burrow at 1. And then I'm going to call number 3 Detroit and make sure it gets out there to say, we're looking offensive tackle at 3. So Gettleman putting on his face mask in his house where you can't even get the virus because it's already in your house. You probably would already have it. Says, you know what? They're going to take a tackle. I'm going to reach right here. They could have slid back 5 or 6 spots and picked up a massive haul. And they reach at 4. As an Eagles fan, Love to see it, Flash.
After we got over like number 17, I started seeing it being a bit panicky, a bit mix and match. And I mean, obviously we'll go on and talk about the Seahawks. I think they took a projected 137 down at around 25, 26. But the big one for me was Jordan Love going to the Packers, Drew. And one of my favourite comments from last night and quotes was, "I'll have so much to learn from Aaron Rodgers." And the reply was, "That's only if he talks to you."
Yeah, I think Green Bay definitely deserves some criticism for their decision making. To take the quarterback of the future now doesn't really make sense with the way contracts are set up. He's gonna sit behind Rodgers for 1 to 2 years here and kind of learn to be the next quarterback for this franchise. You're gonna lose out on 2 very valuable years where you have him on a very cost-controlled number. So it doesn't really behoove the Packers to do this. They're paying Rodgers a fortune. They're not going to cut Rodgers. It's unlikely that they would trade Rodgers. So they really, it was a questionable decision with a first-round pick anyway for them because they're built to win now. He does not help that. And even beyond that, to trade up to do it was ludicrous. They went up, they moved up ahead of 3 teams that absolutely are locked in at quarterback. The likelihood that those teams were going to be able to facilitate a trade, given what we had seen over the course of that night with how difficult it was to put together trade deals and make stuff happen on the fly. I was very skeptical that anything was going to be able to be done that hadn't already been agreed to before the draft started. And so, sure enough, the fact that they panic moved up ahead of those teams to take a quarterback was pretty bad. So Green Bay, for sure, their front office, I didn't think managed this draft very well. I agree with Donnie's points. I didn't think the Detroit Lions or the Giants got everything they could have gotten out of this draft in terms of assets. They did not manage this well. On the flip side, the Vikings and the Niners, I thought, masterfully kind of maneuvered information and pick placement. Now, whether they got good players is a different question. But just in terms of how they played the draft and kind of the game theory and, kind of making the most out of their spots and getting, additional assets, I thought both of those teams did fairly well.
Donnie, I look at the Packers and I think top 8 defense, worst case scenario top 8. And that's me maybe a little bit unkind because they got found out so long. But they were desperate for a receiver. They were desperate for a game changer, some kind of weapon that Aaron Rodgers can aim at, or even just be a decoy. And they go with a QB.
It was absolutely amazing, and I had to read through a couple things because you hear it on TV come through, and then obviously I'm on social media and Twitter, and I'm trying to process what actually just happened. This wasn't like a guy who fell to us. You remember back, Flash, when we're talking about when they draft Aaron Rodgers and for Green Bay and Brett Favre is still there, and you say, well, look. The kid was supposed to be arguably the number 1 pick, but nobody needed a quarterback. Now we're sitting here with a quarterback in the mid-20s. We're going to take him just because he's the best player on the board and we'll deal with the fallout, which actually was a pretty good move by them. But trading up in principal and capital, and you still have Aaron Rodgers. We're seeing quarterbacks playing to their 40s. He's got at least 3 more elite level years. And the best part Drew brings up is you win now in the NFL by spending $3 million on your quarterback, not $33 million on your quarterback, because then that's going to hurt the rest of the football team. And just to see, Aaron Rodgers is the same cutout cloth of Brett Favre, and it's most like professional athletes. Let me get this straight. You want me to be nice to this guy who's supposed to take my job, but I'm supposed to leave town where you probably think you drafted him because I'm just about done? Let's see how really that goes, because he's not the most personable guy that's going to open up the door. Oh, shucks, man. Welcome in. Let's have a couple of beers. He's going to shut him down and probably give him misinformation. Hey, what did you read out there? Was it cover 2? The safety was side. Yeah, throw it to the other side of the field and chuckle as he walks away and then watches an interception in practice take place. This was an awful move, and for a guy as talented as Aaron Rodgers is for over his career, and I'll keep on saying it, him winning and just getting the 1 Super Bowl is amazing. Can you imagine if this organization just rolled the dice year after year and made sure he had the weapons he had, not aging tight end after aging tight end that you bring in? He's always had a decent offensive line. Spending that extra money on getting a decent running back or having 2 number 1 wide receivers to pair up with arguably the most talented quarterback of all time, it's amazing they did that. But again, being a fan of a team in the NFC, can't say I hate it.
The big one for me, it was double pronged. It was horrible because most people had running backs under 0.5. And the Chiefs then go bonkers because they say if there is a running back, it will be DeAndre Swift out first. Everyone was on that one. So we wait for the last pick of the night and they go for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And then I can just imagine all them people Googling, who is Clyde Edwards-Helaire? And I said it twice for you, Drew, so you don't have to.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. CEH sounds good to me.
Yeah. But it was crazy because it killed so many of the punters. I mean, we have the organizations making bad picks for their own teams and for the future. And then we've got teams like the Chiefs who are they didn't even care. They could have just gone, well, we'll pick him because we don't really need anybody. We've got our roster completely as it was. We're not even bothered, but we know that no one's going to think of this guy. And that has just killed us, Donnie.
Yeah, I would say with the Clyde Edwards-Helaire pick, you know, it's tough to criticize the Chiefs as a franchise because they've set themselves up to be contenders for every year for the next 15 years. The duration of Pat Mahomes, his time in Kansas City, they're going to be contenders for the AFC. Problem is, why, what are you going to get a guy that's you're going to take the ball out of Pat Mahomes' hands now and, feed this young running back? I don't know. I don't love the idea of taking a running back in round one anyway. And the fact that, they have some interesting holes on defense. They lost a couple pieces on defense. They have Chris Jones kind of in this, kind of gray area where they're franchising him, and it's not obvious that they're going to get a long-term deal agreed with because of their cap situation. I thought there was some talent there from the defensive line, from the cornerbacks and secondary. They could have solidified, their defense with a guy who slid. And could have been a plug and play week one. Clyde, he may end up being a great fantasy running back for people. And if you care about fantasy football, read up on this guy, I guess, because he'll probably be productive. But Damian Williams, we saw him in the playoffs last year. This is a guy they picked up off the scrap heap. And he did phenomenally well for them in this system because guess what? If you have Pat Mahomes at quarterback, there's a lot of opportunity for the running back to do whatever the hell he feels like it. Yeah. And so I don't know that they needed to invest first round capital in a running back for Kansas City, but they're playing with so much house money they can do whatever the hell they want, I guess.
Yeah, I've got to apologise to Mohamed Joma, who's in the chat, and he's obviously sick about what happened last night. And I've just reopened that wound. I reopened that wound because I was with you all the way there. It was an absolute nightmare. And as the draft went on, I was sinking lower and lower into my chair. So anyway, let's go with the preview now of round 2 and round 3. And let's find some winners, Donnie.
You know what's interesting, just to bring it up, because again, Andy Reid and the Chiefs had the last pick of the first round, which when you're sitting in that hole, you could, as long as you have, Andy Reid still have sound mind and body over there calling plays and setting up the offense, and the single most talented quarterback we've maybe ever seen in football, you can really do whatever you want. You can draft a defensive lineman, a linebacker. It doesn't matter. He's so good, he's going to win you the football game. But if I'm Andy Reid, instead of going running back there, which is nice, because again, we saw, as Drew brings out, some guys that are unheralded doing big things because of how good your quarterback is and how much the spacing is down the field. They could have just ripped the roof off a T. Higgins, a Michael Pittman, a Denzel Mims, or even went tight end to go dual set tight end with Travis Kelce and just ripped everybody up. It was interesting that they took that extra pick and said, we're going to go running back, one of the most expendable positions in a first-round capacity. I thought they could have added Flash, an unbelievable player, maybe as a wide receiver, as I said, as a tight end, that would have said, oh, my God, who's stopping them now? So interesting move there.
Drew, let's go straight into round 2. And all of a sudden, I look at the talent that's going to be coming up, and it's like, wow, we've got running backs, we've got DeAndre Swift, we've got Jonathan Taylor, we've got Dobbins, and we've also got proper wide receivers still without a home.
Oh, yeah, for sure. There's at least 6 wide receivers that are going to go in round 2 of this draft, and I think there's a bunch of teams that need those guys. So you're going to see you'll probably see a little mini run on wide receivers mid-round 2. At the top of round 2, a guy that stands out pretty clearly to me is Jay Jones Jonathan Jones, the tackle, he is a legitimate top-tier tackle. He slid into round two. And if I'm looking at, Cincinnati's performance last year, really over the last several years, their offensive line is a massive problem. And now you've just invested in your entire draft capital, pick 1.1. You just took, your quarterback of the future. I think you absolutely have to spend your capital here at 2.1, protecting that guy. And a player like Jones has versatility. He can play at multiple positions on the line. And start solidifying, what is your greatest weakness on your team, and with your franchise, we're expecting Joe Burrow is going to be taking snaps week one. Get some protection for this kid. Don't let him get smashed around. Don't let his confidence be shook. So for me, if I'm Cincinnati, if I'm on the clock right now, I'm not even hesitating. I'm taking Jonathan Jones as my first pick in the second round. And again, that leaves a lot of wide receivers there for the Colts who need one. Or for some other team to trade up and take their pick of the litter, because as you mentioned, there's a lot of talent at the wide receiver position sitting there for that any team that's needing.
Donnie, I fancy there'd be quite a few teams to trade up to make sure they get the right man, but there is an absolute wealth of talent to be had. And the one thing I look at and go, Bill O'Brien, you've got an opportunity here. You've got everything you need on offense. Now go and sort out your D. So for me, the Texans to take a defensive pick first up at minus 155, that should be buying money.
No, I mean, it really should be when you try to break it down. But then again, we're talking about the Texans and their front office and everything that they've done so far this offseason. You're really scratching your head. I wouldn't put it past. We joked earlier before we were even shooting that they probably pick like a running back. It's like, well, what are we even going running back at this spot for? Now we have a massive hole at, a wide receiver position or even somewhere in defense where you can fill in. Those are the tough ones to do because, Flash, I think you were saying it was at minus 150 or something like that. It would be hard for me to do because, again, it's one of those franchises that just does things so backwards where it's almost like the head coach, who's Bill O'Brien, who is the GM, who is the vice president of the organization, says, watch me take this pick just to antagonize people. Then I'm going to say, I run this organization, and don't worry about it. So it's kind of hard to do. We're trying to pick and choose exactly what they're going to do. I could see them go running back, quarterback. Hell, they probably would even go Jalen Hurts, even with having a superstar quarterback that they have just now, just so him and, J.J. Watt can take some post-apocalyptic pictures from the locker room or even from lifting weights on another one of those tough losses. But tough going there for the Houston Texans, man. It's hard to bet with them, Flash. Just giving you my opinion on that.
No, it is hard, but because it's not hard the way that we broke it down, because everything we broke it down makes complete sense. It's just that you've got someone who actually acts senile at some stages, and you cannot fathom it. It's the opposite of having a proper brain. You're thinking to yourself, I've worked this out. This organisation is 100% going to be needing defensive players now to just accommodate staying in games. And all of a sudden they'll go for another wide receiver and miss out and leave a big hole and then wonder why they get beat or outscored because they score points. There's no problem. Mohamed Joma in the chat, Drew, says Winfield to be the first safety. Obviously McKinney's heavily odds on and he's like plus 600.
Well, first of all, with the Texans pick, I agree with you. I do think they'll go defense, and actually safety would be my guess as to which direction they go. It just kind of overall philosophy standpoint with betting round two of the draft, I think we should be looking for big prices. I do not think you want to be, trying to find the sure thing and, really laying a heavy duty juice here. Because there is a massive amount of uncertainty with this round two. With a lot of the round one, most of my focus was really top 10 because after those top 10 picks, things get so uncertain that you really can't predict a lot as well as you can, when you have, who's on the clock, who's going to be available. And with this round two, these numbers have all gone up in the span of, 2-3 hours, 5-10 hours at the most. And we really aren't getting in any information shaping these markets very well, which means that there's going to be some big prices that come in. And I definitely don't think you should be looking at a market like first overall safety, seeing someone like McKinney at minus 250 and assume, oh, well, if the book says that it's minus 2, that's a sure thing then. I'm going to go hammer that price. I mean, I don't have any information that links any particular team to McKinney. I don't have any GM who's on record during the draft process that was like, man, if McKinney slides to us at the end of the first round or the beginning of the second, we won't hesitate. We're going to take this guy. No, it's entirely up to the speculation of the scouts, the people in the media who have kind of put safeties on the draft board that have put McKinney at the top. I think Winfield is an incredible player. If you're getting that kind of a price, you obviously don't put your entire account balance on it. Yeah. That's silly, but if you want to have a little fun in the draft, overall for this whole second round, you want to take on some of the chalk in some of these markets, like first tight end, like first safety. I would absolutely look for a better price. I don't think it's a slam dunk that Cole Kmet goes in round 2 and that he's the first tight end taken. Patriots could, they love to surprise people. They love to pick total random players that no one's ever heard of. Who knows? They may take the kid from Dayton. They may take one of the Harrison kids. Kids that there could be a long price that comes in both of those markets, and I'd rather attack that way than I would ostensibly make a play that you think is a sure thing for round 2, because I got bad news for you. There are no sure things in round 2.
Not all 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7. And the thing is, you say about the Patriots, they've got 12 picks now, because obviously they just wavered number 1 or the first round pick. Johnny, what do you like in round 2 and 3?
Yeah, Drew brings up some good points there, because even if you can equate it to just if you're a Major League Baseball bettor, if you take 2 dogs, you go 1-1, you're coming home with a plus money price. Take 2 favorites in this round, you go 1-1, you're going to be losing money. So I look at some interesting things because, and again, there's some movement here, even in the chat box bringing it up. Jalen Hurts now sitting at minus 185 to be the first quarterback off the board in round 2. And as we know in the draft, it only takes one team. If one team says, I like Jacob Eason at plus 150, even if 31 other teams think the right move is Jalen Hurts, that's all. You saw it yesterday in the first round when I had, first pick Jerry Jeudy plus 135 at wide receiver. I wasn't worried about Ruggs getting taken in that draft. I was worried about CeeDee Lamb and all the steam going from like a plus money number to minus like 225 right around draft time, only to see Ruggs get taken. It only takes one of these teams to upset it. So I think Drew's right in his perspective, saying, you know what, let's take some plus money on this, because even if you don't foresee something, boy, it's nice to not foresee something at plus 135 than it is minus 135. So one of the ones I actually like is Jacob Eason getting plus 150. The same steam, I'll go equate it back to yesterday. CeeDee Lamb was surefire number 1, rapidly moving up. He ends up going the 3rd overall wide receiver as opposed to even the first one. So I'm going to take a shot that says one team likes Jacob Eason. Everybody likes those robotic type dudes, 6'1" to 6'6", white kids with big arms and smart on the chalkboard. I think somebody's going to take a flyer on him and draft him above a Hurts. That'll be a long shot for me at plus 150.
And we've got Harrison, first tight end, at plus 2,000 in the chat from SM. Even Ronan says Jeremy Chin, plus 700 to be the first safety. I think he'll do well to be above McKinney and Winfield, to be honest. And also in there, we've got Hurts is now 62.5. And I mean, earlier on, I thought I saw under or over 70. So that's dropped 7.5. So you probably could bet both sides if you got on that market early. Drew, what do you like?
Well, I think all of your points are pretty rational there. And, this morning, I think when we woke up, Hurts to go, the first quarterback was like plus 150. So the fact that he's minus 180 now is wild. There's certainly no information informing that. I saw at DraftKings, for instance, Ian Rappaport put out a tweet that didn't make any sense. It was basically, Bengals are considering Blacklock and some wide receiver, right? And it's like Bengals, they have 8 figures dedicated to their defensive line. They're not going to go take another defensive lineman. Like, that's ridiculous. But it didn't matter. Like at DraftKings, Blacklock first, 33rd pick went from plus 3,300 to plus 300. So he became the favorite just on one Ian Rappaport tweet. And if we learned anything from this cycle or from cycles years past, he's not necessarily giving out information that's actionable. He is just serving someone's purpose in terms of trying to create market activity or, stir some stuff up. Now, if BlackRock actually goes 33, I owe Ian an apology, but I think a very, very, I may not even have his name right, Blaylock, whatever his name is, the defensive tackle. And anyway, it to me, that seemed suspicious, and I would be suspicious in general of quote unquote national media information people moving some of these markets, and I would try to bet against those moves, honestly, because I think that you're going to be finding inefficiencies here. I personally think when I look at quarterbacks overall, who in the hell needs a quarterback right now? Right. I mean, and if you need a quarterback right now, why not take one of the guys who's, out there in the free agency market? Why are you going to waste second round draft capital on a backup quarterback? People have kind of linked quarterbacks to the Patriots. From what I can tell you, the Patriots are most inclined to take a guy like Jake Fromm out of this mix, which means they're probably not going to get involved until round 3. And the Colts, people link the Colts to a quarterback. That smells like total misinformation to me, because the Colts are paying, they're paying big money to both Phillip Rivers and Jacoby Brissett this year. The likelihood that they add a third guy and that guy doesn't even get backup snaps through whatever camp and practice they have this season is a huge reach to me. So I would be surprised if the Colts take a quarterback of the future type, which is the guy like Eason or a guy like Hurts. So it's really tough as you look across the landscape and try to figure out which of these teams is going to take a quarterback. And now, obviously, a team like Green Bay took one last night, and that didn't make any sense. So something that doesn't make any sense could very well happen. But in general, I think a lot of these quarterbacks could slide. In general, I think the Cole Kmet steam from a tight end that he's going to somehow go in the top 7-8 picks tonight is insane. I like his over. You can probably find some stale overs where you get a little bit better price, plus 200, plus 250 to go, past the 18 and a half picks tonight. There are some places that are offering a market on first defensive lineman taken tonight, and they give you like 4 choices or so. And at the top of the market, the kid from Penn State with, again, the 3 initials YGM. I'll just say that he was expected to be the first player off the board because he's a legitimate edge rusher, and he was supposed to go in the first round, and he slid to day 2. But I think AJ, again, I don't really know how to pronounce his last name, so I'll just say AJE. He's definitely on draft boards like the Lions, like the Patriots, and I could see him going in the top, say, 5-6 picks tonight. So those are kind of if you can find plus money prices on those types of prospects, I think they're very worth leaning into. And I still think some of our operating assumptions coming into this draft that trades are going to be difficult. Well, guess what? Pick timing is going to start to get shorter and shorter, which is going to make it even more difficult to pull off trades. So if you're kind of looking around, and the normal round 2 and round 3 can get real hectic as teams are jockeying for position in the draft because they have specific guys in mind. I think throw all that out this year. I think we didn't see as much uncertainty in round 1 from the fact that trades couldn't happen as we expected. But I do think you see much more in rounds 2 and 3, because you're going to have situations like the Seahawks last night at the end of round 1 where they desperately wanted to trade out. Trade gets canceled at the 11th hour, and so they end up putting a card in for a guy that they could have waited till day 2 to get. So that sort of scenario, I think, plays out pretty regularly today in rounds 2 and 3.
Day 3, really. Jordan Brooks, he was ranked around 139.
Yeah, sure.
Let's talk about the Bungles, Donnie, because they obviously go and get Mr. Hotshot and Joe Burrow, quarterback. So surely that their first pick now has got to be to protect him, so offensive line, so it brings in Josh Jones.
I think it would be a good move here because you can go a plethora of different ways. If you're going to make your number 1 overall pick your franchise guy, there's no time for the Bengals to say, hey, let's shore up our defense and see what we can do. You got to protect this guy with as many picks as you can. You got to give him as many weapons as you have. You already have a pretty good ground game that you're going to be able to get behind him. A.J. Green, a very valuable wide receiver, but banged up last year. We'll see how much left he does have in the tank, but that's a pretty good start. Getting guys around Burrow so he can make his correct reads, so he has enough time to make his correct reads, because we've seen in the past some of these teams, and we're looking at the Houston Texans that let their young quarterbacks, including at the David Carr, get absolutely shell-shocked early in their career. Protect these guys. Get them weapons. Don't worry about if your defense gives up 50 points and you only win 16 games. Your only point is, how does my quarterback actually progress through his rookie year? Does he work with his tendencies? Does he have enough time to make good tendencies? That's all I care about. Give me offensive line flash. I agree with it. Give me some weapons to put around them.
Okay, well, we've got Cole Kmet over 45.5 now at plus 105. You think that's close to the number, or would you still go over? But I think I saw that around 39, so it's probably moved 6 spots on the plus side.
It's been all over the place today. I think and honestly, when you're looking at these numbers move and these lines move, recognize that there for sure are professional groups that have multiple accounts at some of these books that are taking arbitrage opportunities here, because if a number is 50.5 at one place and 39.5 at another place, guess what? You have a 10 pick middle. Like, that's an enormous amount of middle. You only have to hit that. If you're getting 110 on either side, you only have to hit that middle 5% of the time to be profitable with that strategy. So I think a lot of the steam that's been manipulating some of these prices is informed by, these groups taking middle positions. And Cole Kmet is kind of the guy that I would look at as, why is this number bouncing all over the place? It's not because anyone reasonably has information or intel that someone loves this player and they're absolutely going to pick him. He's not going to make it past this pick, right? Like, you could have said that stuff about players in the top 10, top 15. You can't say that in round 2. And for sure, given the information channels that exist out there and some of the, the fact that no one's had their opportunity to talk to scouts. No one really knows who's on whose board for day 2. I would take over at plus money for Cole Kmet in a heartbeat. I think some other tight end's probably going to go before him. I can't tell you which one, but I would take him on in the first tight end prop market for sure.
2 players I'm really looking forward to are Chase Claypool and T. Higgins, Donnie.
Yeah, no, 2 really good wide receivers still left on the board. And we talked about it for a long time of how good this draft was and how stacked it is. I mean, you legitimately have in a normal draft a lot of first-round wide receiver talent still on the board that's going to be here for day 2 and rounds 2 and 3, which, I bring up my Philadelphia Eagles taking a guy with Jalen Reagor, who does have a lot of upside, not the guy I would have picked. But if you were looking to restock your cupboard here, T. Higgins, Michael Pittman, Denzel Mims, Laviska Shenault, KJ Hamler, even a guy that we talked about as one of those longer shot guys, the Devin Duvernays of the world, there is a lot of help you can get at wide receiver. And if you're sitting back, like teams like the Miami Dolphins, and even the New England Patriots, who are devoid of talent at the wide receiver position, you can absolutely load up, because what's the worst thing that can happen? You take 3 of these guys and one doesn't work out, you find yourself 2 really good playmakers. Anybody would take that, because a lot of times we're talking about guys that are still left on the board that maybe reaches, boy, they underperform. There is a lot of Power 5 football dominant players still on the board at wide receiver that you can afford to take 2 or 3 of them just to see how they'll shake out, because they're that good.
Yeah. We're going to start wrapping it up, but I'm looking like from last night, we're getting all the fancy stuff. And yeah, I'm looking more forward now to like round 2 or round 3 because of the talent, because of the value, because we've got multiple picks from certain teams, Drew.
Yeah, no, it's Donnie's right. I would say there are conservatively about 16 players left on the board that have first round grades. Yeah. And in any normal draft, they wouldn't be there. And so there are going to be some teams that drastically improve their future based on, picking up some of the scraps here in round 2. A lot on defense, a lot of wide receivers. I think, and so I, just kind of thinking through that and the idea that the fact that if round 1 was a lot of kind of addressing need, round 2 will be more stockpiling talent. I think you do see a pretty substantial run on wide receivers, as we talked about. I think a lot of cornerbacks and safeties go in round 2, and then a handful of edge rushers, handful of tackles. I don't think we see many running backs, many tight ends, many quarterbacks until we get to round 3.
Yeah, in the chat, SM said he had Eason over 45.5 yesterday. It's now 55.5. Well, you know what to do. You go under now and you have the 10-point middle for free. I love doing it in college basketball. It is that you lose a cup of tea or you win a 3-course meal. Obviously, it depends how much you eat, but as you can see, I don't eat a lot. Now, Donnie, can you give me a couple of decent bets that you're eyeing up?
Yeah, I'm going 2 of them. I already had the one there with Jacob Eason at plus 150. I think we'll stick with that one as a good plus money wager. And I'm angry from yesterday. And I know we always tell people you should be betting angry at this time. But the fact that my, easily winning day was my easiest bet, I like to say, yesterday with taking Swift as the number 1 overall running back that's going to get off the board. And Edwards-Helaire actually takes it. I'm sitting here in the second round now, and I'm looking at the board and say, there's no way somebody goes ahead of DeAndre Swift again. So I'm going to lay at 175 that he's the first running back again. Talk about throwing bad money after bad money. I'm going to do it. I don't give a damn. If he doesn't come off the board, I'm just going to sit back and be like, you know what? Just, crapshoot. I'll go roll some dice somewhere or something flash.
No, I get it. I get it. It's almost like you've asked the best-looking woman in the house for a dance, and she said, yeah, okay. And then you look over and she's dancing with someone else. And then you see she's not dancing, and you're going to go in and ask her again. Okay. You'll be wiping that custard out of your eyes. Drew, what are your favourite bets?
I like that one, honestly, though, because there was some information swirling that if the Dolphins had made their pick yesterday, that it was in the late in the draft, that it was going to be Swift. They were ready to go. They were ready to fire on that, and then
I think
PFF,
the Pro Football Focus, actually sent a tweet out that said they drafted him yesterday.
No, that wasn't smoke. That was, they were ready to go on that pick. That card was already written. They changed it at the last minute, and you look where they are today. They're picking 39th. Any team that has eyes for Swift, that he is going at pick 39 unless you go and get in front of them, which I think is entirely likely. I'm not saying he's going to be a Dolphin. I'm saying that's your backstop. You have a backstop. That's where he's landing on 39. So you could very well see some team position themselves to get in front of them to take him if they really prize him. Otherwise, I think he goes there, and that's probably your first and maybe one of only a few running backs we see in round 2.
Listen, it just gives me enough time to say thank you, Donnie. Thank you, Drew. Enjoy the NFL Draft 2020. Round 2s and 3s tonight. Thanks for everyone in the chat. On your way out, please press the thumbs up if you've enjoyed the video. Subscribe and ring the bell if it's your first time. And obviously, we'd like to see you all again. Those that tuned in via Facebook, remember, it's Sportsbook Review. Until next time, you take care and stay safe.